he's just too nice. Yeah. He had a stray cat come also. This little starving kitten that grew up and had 11 more. This was a church steeple in Washington, and the church burned, and a friend and I salvaged the steeple and gave it to a museum, and they used it for a gazebo. And then I got a call from the museum, said that they didn't want it anymore. It was on a truck, and it was coming to my house. It's the right height, and it'll just fit on the corner of the porch up there. That was where I kept the Britton films that are being copied, because my wife wasn't real excited about them in the house, and she thought I should just get rid of them. And I kept them there, and what they said is probably now that they were there for 30 years, that all it needs is dark and dry. I like to save things, especially if it looks like they're too far gone. No other living people have been in this room, and I don't know why I'm doing it, but I know what these pictures are going to look like. They're going to look like who I am, and it's going to look like I'm one of those obsessive people or something. Right there is all my tools for building log houses. And there is the Britton room. Papers in here, and files and boxes, and see, this is the Brintons that the movies were from. And here he is with one of his airships. He was working with flyable airplanes in 1890. He sometimes gave them rides in flying machines within the Opera House. It wasn't happening anyplace else.
What do you think of Michael and having this Britton film collection? What's that?
Well, we got it about a week or two after we got married, and it went into one of the rooms of our house, so that room is called the Britton room.
Mr. Britton died in 1919, just when all of this was getting to be a big thing. And the things were in their basement. Mrs. Britton died in 1955. The executor of her estate, rather than disposing of things, moved them to his basement. And in 1981, when they were cleaning out his house, I was there. I tried to get people excited 30 years ago, and I would take them some films, and I say, okay, what should I do with these and such, and they say, get them out of our building. And that's as much response as I got. Today we are moving the Britton collection of material. We'll be moving it to the Ainsworth Opera House, where it can be spread out, organize it and such, because we do not have room here to do that. And it clears out a big space in our house.
That's the man himself.
That's Frank Britton.
You can just see that there's a real story to weave together here. So it's going to be really fun to actually get it all out, set out and arranged, and see what's there.
That's a piece of the Britain airship from 1899. And this is the Britain's movie projector. And I have legs for it. It sits up about this high. This is the Britain Victrola that was advertised as being able to be dropped off of a moving train and still work. And it still works. And it will not fly out.
No.
This is a story about two men separated by about 100 years. It's the story of the early history of the motion picture. What was science fiction becomes entertainment. This is one man's quest to show this brand new medium in the form of entertainment. And this is one man's quest to save a piece of history before it's lost forever. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Zott.
Let's say this is 1895. You live on a farm in Iowa. You've anticipated this day for weeks. You got all the work out of your kids you could. That if they had to have all the potatoes dug and everything, or you wouldn't go into town to see something nobody had seen. Okay, so you got into town. On the side of the building, you see this. Wouldn't that be special in 1870? Yeah, it's okay to wow. Frank Britton had a dissolving projector. He would project that image, and then you would dissolve this into it. Okay, that's a magic lantern slide. You know, this is pre-movie. This is labeled Bartholdi's statue. It hadn't been called Statue of Liberty yet. Mr. Britton was fascinated with projection, but also the illusion of motion. Frank and Indiana Britton were from Washington, Iowa. The Brittons traveled from Texas to Minnesota. And in that part of the country, in the 1890s, early 1900s, most of that part of the country saw their first projected images at a Britton show.
Richie woman?
You could get this film in color in the 1890s. It may have cost $10 or $15 more, but what it meant was that someone hand-tinted every frame. We know that the Britons had color films, but whether any of them survived or not, we do not know. And who is that? That is George Méliès. He was a master of special effects. Perhaps he was the first person to do special effects. And a lot of this was really quite exciting at the time. I was sitting in the theater for Hugo, and I just about lost it. The scenery in that clip, we have movies with him in it. We have films with his wife in it. Which I think are sort of cool.
I got one or the other today
Now you're
because
the
it's
guy with the
Sunday.
film collection.
Well,
See what I'm saying? So,
sort of. But, you know, I want the emphasis to be on places like this, where they showed it. And I want it to be on Iowa. And we'll go to those towns where they performed and we'll put on a show just like was there 120 years ago. I don't know. I dream a lot. That's
jaw like
fine.
this, and fucking beat all the way out gone. On the pipe. On the pipe. She don't even know what she's doing. She don't even know what she's doing, man. Ain't nothing slower than a tweaker in a hurry. She's been trying to leave for an hour. When it's time for me to go, you know what I do? Shit in the backpack and I'm gone. You know what a tweaker does?
Yeah, I've done a couple. I'm scared of them actually.
Unpack the bag.
I was at Humanities Iowa one time when a phone call came, and it was from Mr. Scorsese, one of his
She's still swimming.
employees contacting
Like that.
Humanities Iowa in reference
She's on
to
the
this.
ground going through her bag just like this.
And then I never heard another thing.
You got
I
Baileys
just
in?
happened to be there when that call
You
came.
got Baileys in?
So I don't know whether, you know, how all that
That is
transpired,
good
but the call
coffee.
came from New York about the film.
It's heavy.
You know, until this year, nobody was ever excited about it. And I didn't, yeah, people came and watched the shows and such, but
Right on your shirt.
there wasn't
Boobs.
the interest
My plans
to,
were different today.
you know, what is the
are you doing?
significance of these.
Well, I thought I was gonna talk to Dave about what
I've taken care of cemeteries most of my life, 51 years, and I don't know, I just think that rather than feared or spooked out by, I just think cemeteries should be enjoyed. That's the best way to honor the people buried here. My father died in 2001, where my mother will be buried. The family stone, William Franklin Brinton, and then it has the names of the people that are included in the lot. I don't think I've ever on another marker ever seen an epitaph that refers to falling. Most epitaphs refer to going to heaven. And here we have something, they have fallen. I always wondered if it had something to do with Mr. Britton's fascination with flight, but I have no way of knowing.
Now it's yours.
No, it ain't mine, huh? It ain't mine, huh? These are just people I know. This is their fucking drama, not mine. I ain't got shit to do with it. I don't give a fuck.
Just give you a little background of the whole collection. Frank and Indiana Brinton were local people from Washington.
Spell the last name for me. Their last. Brinton, okay?
And that's one of their posters. And they appeared here in the Opera House. And
Okay.
that's one of the reasons that
And
they
their
said
first names,
Frank and Indiana.
you
This
have
is
a rough idea how many items there are?
thousands.
Pardon?
Thousands.
About 1,000 items.
Oh, no more. Thousands.
Thousands. How many thousands, roughly? Take a guess. Several, so can we say several thousand items?
I would say 8 to 10,000. Here is how the box was labeled when I got it. Written CRAP, it says look for historical value, but I don't think they did. Here's a photograph of Lee's surrender to U.S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. So that would have been something that you would have shown in the north, but if you were doing a show in Texas, you would have let that slide out. You would project this over and make smoke come out of the stacks of the steamboats.
I'm not seeing anything happening.
Here we have a little flip book that shows a prize fight.
Wow.
No, you haven't seen the stuff yet.
Stuff?
Humidor for cigars. And then this would be a jewelry box. I don't know whether this was their mummy, but they had a mummy in their living room. Firearms, apparently they felt the need to be well armed, but they also had more cash than anybody else in town. A picture that's considered quite significant. It's taken inside the Graham Opera House about 1898 with Frank and Indiana Brinton actually projecting a movie. And here is the manual for this Zenith projector on how to operate it and how to maintain it and all of the parts and things that go with it. And probably this would still work, but they were
Yes,
just
it would still work.
fascinating
I'll say.
people.
That is all I need. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Bad.
What?
That chick.
Here, my dog.
I thought you would spend much more time.
You watch it all about?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit of basketball. I think I got
Oh, here's an interesting one. Okay, Rock of Ages, number 8, Angels Beckoning, dissolving only. Rock of Ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Could you love a little girl like me?
And we have a complete set of that and the music.
Sam and Vera's Cafe, Northside, good food, cold drinks, ice cream, cigarettes and sundries, magazines, comic books, homemade pies, hot dogs, 10 cents. Agency, Iowa. I mean, that's just wonderful. We'll resume in a few minutes. See, these are cool. These help you build your show. You'll have fun. See, your wife may compel you to wear that Christmas necktie, but she can't prevent you from growing whiskers. That's what he's been using. One of the things that's just totally fascinating about this is we're talking about a small town in eastern Iowa, and we have a pate catalog from Paris. And that is, to me, what is so fabulous about this collection. The films are wonderful, but I liken this to a situation where we've found some pieces of 8 and some gold bars down below the Caribbean. Well, that's nice to bring them up. Everybody likes gold. Everybody likes old coins. But the archaeologist in us wants to know what's on the bill of lading, what's on the ship's log, what else was in that hold, where were they coming from, where were they going to, who paid for all of this. And what's wonderful, just wonderful, gives me goosebumps about this collection is we begin to get a sense of that. We get a sense of the fact that this was a multimedia show. It was not just films being shown. There may have been 100 of those centered in Iowa, but we don't have the evidence of 100 of them. We have only a very few, and I think none of this completeness and this variety.
Come on in and sign in, please. So how are you folks? You know who we have coming this year that I don't think has ever come before? Your sister.
Oh, you're kidding.
I know. I said I think this is our 40th year of doing this. And I know it's not because that we're good at doing it. It's because none of the rest of you want to. And I know that. But I also think it's good to be the youngest in some group, and what are my chances if it's not this group? Since I sent out the invitations this year, which is the last of April, at least 4 people have passed away since the invitations went out. So we are a group that is not getting larger. And this year was a particularly difficult year for some of our older graduates.
Where'd he go?
Basically what I know, it comes from Library of Congress via records they have from AFI, American Film Institute, who were, that's the body that was in charge of the original process to reformat and copy the film. And it'll be interesting to see when you're there how all of this lines up. This has the plus sign indicates hand or stencil color original. This one surplus but not discarded. So, how many of these films are unique copies? If there's color that was copied as black and white, I would love to have those reformatted.
They have in Library of Congress missing Méliès films. What do you mean missing? Are they or are they not? And has nobody researched? I mean, this is the godfather of cinema.
It's changed, staff changed. These films have physically been moved from location to location over the years. I mean,
You would think there'd be a lot of interest in any Méliès film.
We are now, as you can tell, we are entering the vaults. This is what we're fighting against. This reel cannot be saved. I kind of don't want to throw it away because it's such a vivid example of what happens. 348. The one I'm looking for.
We were told that these were all gone. And then to find that the originals still exist is just overwhelming.
Well, it makes me so happy too, because I've been taking care of all this stuff for 30 years, and to actually have people be able to save them all these years for someone, that's really cool. Because otherwise, this stuff sits in these vaults, and all it is old film sitting on a shelf somewhere. Oh, this one's nice. Very nice. Alright, let's see what kind of shrinkage we got going on here. But this one, this one's really, really early. Kind of looks like either an Edison film, and probably from 1900 or earlier. That's pretty amazing. And what the heck is this? That's an explosion. You can see here's the lightning coming down and going through the balloon, actually,
Yeah,
and then
it
there's
goes right through
two
the
frames
balloon.
of an explosion.
And it falls into the ocean.
Right, and then you get this nice hand-colored, pull this down here a bit, nice hand-colored explosion. Take this very slowly, or at least,
I like this film. And it blows up.
People throwing snowballs.
Confetti snowballs.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a copy of this. So that's interesting. So there's part of the collection that I never got a copy of.
very, very
This has to be the best color I've ever seen.
Yeah, this looks really good. Have you had any correspondence or met at all with Serge Bromberg?
No, we
He's here.
just know he's here.
Okay, he's here. He's good to talk to. Because if you want to know about French film,
Oh, this is not the ending I know.
No,
This is
that
another film.
That's another film.
So you're missing the end of the previous
Yes.
film, and this is another film.
And I know you've seen many.
It's an original one?
Yes.
So he's gonna threaten you and tell you that if you don't come see him,
Did you scan this?
is that
You
what
must
you're
scan
It's
it.
not the first time I've taken him any place.
You know, it would be so helpful for identification. It is absolutely stunning.
Did we just...
I need a drink. And believe me, not water.
Do you know this one?
Yes, of course. That's La Peine du Talion. It's existing color, very complete.
Do you know the actor?
It is made.
It is Melee.
See, if you want to see someone fainting, that's me.
I'll hold you. So you've not seen this?
Never. It's unique. It is Méliès, and that's exactly the film. And it's the one that's missing. Oh yeah, in 1901 he had that flag that he would activate all the time, and he will throw her in the air, okay? And then the last one, and he will salute, and that's it. Okay. We have a new one.
Bravo, thank you.
Congratulations. Every time a film is found is such good news. So, merci.
I can see out of them. I can see what you're thinking. I can see into the future, blind ass.
Well, more excitement.
Washington, Iowa, which is far different and in a positive way, far different from Washington, D.C.
Pull through, promenade down, go walking around that place. Get back, swing that man